I'm going to challenge something right at the start. The more options we have for connection, the harder it has become to actually connect. We live in a time where meeting someone takes seconds, where attraction is decided with a swipe, where attention is abundant. But intimacy is quietly disappearing. And the unsettling part is this. Many people don't even realize it's happening. If you've ever felt strangely empty after casual encounters, or noticed that conversations feel thinner even when you're talking to someone new, or found yourself losing interest faster than you expected, then you've already brushed against this shift. Maybe you've noticed how quickly excitement rises and fades. Maybe you've felt that relationships feel harder to sustain, not easier, even though access has never been greater. You probably think this is just modern life, or changing norms, or simply personal preference. But by the end of this journey, you may begin to see a deeper pattern beneath all of this. You will start to understand how the way we approach intimacy is slowly shaping how we experience connection itself. You will see why treating people as interchangeable experiences can quietly erode our capacity to bond, and how the systems around us, especially dating apps, are not neutral tools, but environments that train our attention, our expectations, and even our emotional tolerance. And perhaps most importantly, you will begin to see that the loneliness many people feel today is not happening despite all these options. It is happening partly because of them. Let's begin with something simple. Human connection was never designed to be infinite. Our emotional systems evolved in environments where relationships were limited, repeated, and embedded in community. You saw the same faces. You had to repair conflict because you couldn't easily replace people. There was friction, but there was also continuity. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine opening an app where hundreds of potential partners are available within minutes. Every face becomes a possibility. Every conversation becomes optional, and every connection carries a quiet, unspoken message. If this doesn't feel right, you can replace it. At first, this feels empowering. It feels like freedom. But over time, something subtle begins to shift. Connection becomes comparison. You are no longer just experiencing a person. You are evaluating them against other possibilities. You are not asking, "Can I build something here?" You are asking, often unconsciously, "Is there something better?" And that question changes everything. Let me tell you about someone we'll call Jason. Jason downloads a dating app out of curiosity. At first, it's exciting. New conversations, new matches, the sense that anything could happen. He meets someone, they go on a few dates, there's chemistry. But then, one evening, after a perfectly normal interaction, he feels a slight dip in excitement. Nothing dramatic, just a small drop. In another time, that moment would have passed. He would have stayed, explored, allowed the connection to deepen, but now he opens the app. He scrolls. He sees new faces, new possibilities, and suddenly the connection he was building feels less compelling. Not because it was wrong, but because something else might be better. So he leaves, and he tells himself, "It just didn't feel right." Now repeat this pattern enough times, and something begins to happen inside the nervous system. It starts to associate connection not with depth, but with novelty, not with stability, but with stimulation. And this is where the comparison to addictive patterns becomes relevant. Not in a moral sense, but in a behavioral one. The brain begins to seek the next hit of excitement, the next match, the next possibility, the next spark. But just like with any form of stimulation, the baseline shifts. What once felt exciting becomes normal. What once felt meaningful becomes insufficient. And slowly, without realizing it, the threshold for enough begins to rise. This is why some people today find it harder to stay in relationships, not because they don't want love, but because their system has been trained to expect constant emotional intensity. And real relationships don't work like that. Real connection has rhythms. It has quiet moments. It has familiarity. It has repetition. It requires staying when things are not constantly exciting. But if your system is used to spikes, stability can feel like boredom. And boredom in this context is often misunderstood. It's not the absence of connection, it's the absence of stimulation. And many people confuse the two. Now let's look at another layer of this. When interactions become more frequent and more casual, there is a subtle shift in perception. People begin to be experienced less as individuals and more as roles. A match, a date, a conversation, a temporary experience, not intentionally, not maliciously, but functionally. When someone can be replaced easily, the mind begins to treat them as replaceable. And when this happens repeatedly, something else begins to erode, the sense of emotional investment. Why invest deeply when continuity is uncertain? Why open fully when the connection might be temporary? So people protect themselves. They stay slightly detached, slightly guarded, slightly less vulnerable. And here is the paradox. The more we protect ourselves from disappointment, the less we allow real connection to form. Because intimacy requires risk. It requires staying long enough for someone to see you, and for you to see them. It requires moving beyond first impressions and into deeper layers. But when the environment rewards quick decisions, fast exits, and constant novelty, depth becomes harder to access. And over time, this creates a specific kind of loneliness. Not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of being surrounded by interactions that never quite become relationships. Now, let's bring this into everyday life. Think about conversations. Many people today report that conversations feel shorter, less engaging, more transactional. There is less patience for pauses, less curiosity, less willingness to explore. Why? Because attention itself has been fragmented. We are used to switching, swiping, moving on. And that behavior doesn't stay confined to apps. It spills into how we engage with people. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah meets someone she genuinely likes. They have good conversations. There's potential. But during dinner, she notices herself reaching for her phone. Not because she's bored, but because she's used to constant stimulation. The moment becomes quieter. And instead of leaning into that quiet, she feels restless. That restlessness is not about the person in front of her. It's about what her system has been trained to expect. And this is happening on a broader scale. We are living in a time where the environment is shaping not just what we do, but how we feel. And unless we become aware of this, we begin to interpret these shifts as personal truths. This isn't exciting enough. This person isn't right for me. This connection is missing something. But sometimes what's missing is not the person. It's our capacity to stay, to be present, to allow something to unfold without immediately evaluating it. Now, this doesn't mean that casual encounters are inherently wrong, or that dating apps are inherently harmful. They are tools, and like any tool, their impact depends on how they are used. The issue is not the existence of options. It is the unconscious way we engage with them. Because without awareness, the environment begins to shape us more than we shape our choices. And this is where self-awareness becomes essential, not as a judgment, but as a form of clarity. To ask yourself, what am I actually seeking? Connection or stimulation? Depth or novelty? Presence or distraction? And there is no need to rush the answer, because the goal is not to reject modern ways of connecting. The goal is to understand how they are influencing you, so that your choices become intentional, not reactive. As we come toward the end of this reflection, I want to leave you with something simple. The way we approach intimacy shapes the kind of relationships we are able to build. If we move quickly, we experience quickly. If we replace easily, we connect lightly. If we chase constant excitement, we may struggle with steady presence. But if we slow down, even slightly, if we become aware of our patterns, if we allow ourselves to stay just a little longer in moments that feel ordinary, something different becomes possible. Connection that is not just exciting, but sustaining. Not just intense, but real. So the next time you find yourself losing interest or reaching for something new or feeling that quiet restlessness, pause. Not to judge yourself, but to notice. Because sometimes the most meaningful shift in your relationships doesn't come from finding someone new. It comes from learning how to be with someone differently. And maybe, just maybe, that's where real connection begins. Please comment, share and subscribe for more.